Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslims for Progressive Values. I am your host, Kendra Cordova, and today it is Women's History Month, so I wanted to do a quick video for you guys about the gender of Allah, right? The gender of God. This is an important part of culture and social understanding and the understanding of our relationship to God. And as progressive Muslims, we understand that there have been some issues with the gendering of Allah, and so we really need to remind ourselves of the truth here when it comes to Allah and gender, and sort of change the way we think about it and perceive it in the world. So let's talk about that. Now, if you ask any Muslim, is Allah a man? They're going to say, of course not. Allah has no gender, or Allah transcends gender, right? He's above gender, right? Gender is not something that Allah has as part of their being, right? This is true, correct? Yes. Then why do we always refer to Allah as He? Why is it He did this? He did that. He is the greatest. He, right? There is a simple answer for this and a simple way to fix this, actually. So the reason that Allah is always called He is because when you translate it to other languages like English, Arabic has gendered nouns. So if you studied French or any of those other languages that also have gendered nouns, you understand what that means, right? So having a gender, like grammatical gender, means that a noun like a chair or a phone or a book or whatever it is either going to be listed as being masculine or feminine, not because the chair is a girl or the book is a boy or whatever, but because the enunciation of the word and the letters and the spelling are going to have to agree with things like adjectives and verbs and tense, past tense, future tense, whatever, in this sentence. It's actually just the way that the grammar works out. It's not actually like a symbol of actual sexuality or sex or gender. It's literally just the word sounds like this, so the other words around it have to sound like this. That is all. So the term Allah is a masculine noun. And so what that means is that when you translate it, it's going to translate as a he, as a masculine noun. However, something that's really interesting is that when you translate nouns from, let's say, like Arabic or French to languages like English, where nouns don't have to be gendered, we don't assign a gender to those things or to whatever, right? In English and other non-gendered languages, we have gender-neutral pronouns, right? So we can just use it, they, right? Whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a he or a she. However, when we translate Allah, for whatever reason, translators have chosen to keep a gender on Allah, which confuses the concept of being genderless, because in English, he is not a neutral term. He is not neutral. He is very much about being masculine, male, right? So when you translate it, it does mess up the concept of being gender neutral. So you can say that Allah is gender neutral, but if you continue to use he all the time, it's not going to feel that way. And this is where we see some of the problems that happen in society and culture because of the words that we use for Allah or for God. So the problem with this, as I'm sure a lot of women, as someone who is assigned female at birth, although I am non-binary, I was, raised as a girl in the West, and having this gender on Allah, and I'm sure that like a lot of women that I've talked to, Muslim women, notice this as well, is that what happens is that then men become the default. Men become the standard for godliness or divinity. For example, when I was raised in the Catholic Church. And at the school that I was raised in, which had uniforms and was strict and a religious upbringing, The girls had to wear skirts where the guys could wear pants, and that included when it was like 30 degrees outside and freezing. And then instead the push eventually had to be for the girls to be able to wear pants when it was cold outside. And again, we're setting men as like the standard to reach up to here, right? So the girls get held back and held to this sort of like lower place, whereas men become standard, right? So when we think about Islamic scholars, the majority of scholars, when we think about who holds power within these different societal situations, it's going to be men. And this is because we associate power, right? We associate creation, we associate with all of this strength, men, right? Because we're saying he, God, he. And this becomes a problem just mentally, psychologically. We're going to start attaching he to divinity, perfection, all of these things. This is a huge problem. So how do we fix this? Okay, so this is going to cause some people to have what's called a backfire effect. This is a well-documented psychological phenomenon that every human has. The backfire effect is going to be when you're presented with new information. They did brain scans on people to understand why people get so mad when they're given facts and information. It's because your brain, they found in these brain scans, your brain thinks of threats to understanding, threats to like a worldview, threats to your core values, the same way it processes a physical threat. So if someone comes in and tells you that something that you've been doing is wrong, your brain is going to have the exact same reaction as if that person just pulled out a gun. So this is going to cause people to be upset, but if we can at least acknowledge why that happens, we can start to ease it a little bit, okay? But one of the ways that we can really fix this is by either switching to all gender-neutral pronouns for Allah and just using they, them, because in languages like English, we don't have to gender nouns, so we have gender-neutral pronouns in English, so we can switch that culturally. And if whatever your language that you speak is your primary language, if it's not a gendered language, you can switch to a gender-neutral pronoun to help neutralize some of this hypermasculinity in faith. And then the other way, which I've seen some imams do, is if you switch between saying he and she. And this is because we have to remind ourselves that he is just as inaccurate as saying she. He is just as inaccurate as saying she. And I've heard people say, well, Allah never referred to themselves as she, so why would we? You know, Allah says he. Well, Allah doesn't say he. Allah, and in the Quran, is he because of those gendered nouns, not because those are the preferred pronouns or those are the pronouns, because Allah is not a he, right? We said this. So one of the ways that we can mentally break down some of those walls and remove some of these, like setting male as standard, is going to be reminding ourselves that if we switch between he and she, we're being as equally incorrect, right? They're both just as correct if you say he or she. And then switching also to like a gender neutral pronoun is going to be probably the most accurate representation of this concept of being genderless. Another thing that we can look at that is so important is just reminding ourselves of the strong women of Islam, right? So we need to start setting like those women as our standard for when we think about like what a quote woman should be, right? We should not be afraid of female scholars, right? Like Aisha, like one of the original scholars of Islam, who was able to teach and keep all of this information, became like involved in politics, right? She's a very strong female character within Islam. Another one is going to be Khadija, obviously older than the Prophet Muhammad. She's the one that proposed to him, right? She was a powerful businesswoman, and it was actually her money that helped fund early Islam. and help to sort of like get the money and the support needed for Islam in its earlier days. And then holding ourselves to trying to be more accurate in our representation of Allah and the genderlessness there, so that we don't have an inherently misogynistic mentality on faith and on divinity here. Okay. So I'm going to have another women's video here soon. I'm going to be going through the 30 rights of Muslim women. We're going to be looking at women in the Quran. We're going to be looking at some more in-depth women of early Islam as well. That's going to be a great time. Also, I'm going to be teaching our second Islamic class here, our progressive Islamic curriculum, here on the 5th of April. It's the first Saturday of April, 9 p.m. Central. So go to the website, you can sign up for those, or if you're on our emails, you should have gotten an email to sign up for that as well. Of course, if you're looking for a wonderful place to give zakat money, I can link my GiveButter account here in the description so that you can contribute to Muslims for Progressive Values to help with our progressive mission as well. Or, like I said in a previous video, make sure that we are giving as much food and humanitarian relief, especially places like Gaza, as we can right now in Ramadan. Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. I will have more progressive videos for you guys soon. I hope this was helpful, and hope you guys have a great day. I will see you in the next video, inshallah. Salam.